What if I told you you could buy your first rental property with almost no money or very little down, as long as you're willing to live inside a construction zone? You see, I bought a duplex, moved in, and figured that the renovations would only take a few months. Well, it took 3 years, and the tenant was living about 20 feet away from my power tools most of the time. The following is what I wish someone would have told me first. But first, if you enjoy videos like this, let me know by hitting the like button. And if you know of someone else who would appreciate hearing this information, go ahead and feel free to share the video with them. Let's jump in. Lesson 1 is people get weird up close. When you're living right next to someone, you see a lot of aspects to their life that you normally would never see out in the public. When you buy a rental and live right next to a renter, it really shatters the whole world of spreadsheets and sanitized numbers, and it really brings you down to the nitty gritty. I had one renter that had left behind a freezer full of wild caught fish, I guess, and it was years old. I guess he liked to go out and fish, but he didn't enjoy eating the wild caught fish, which is surprising to me because I would think wild caught fish would be amazing as a meal. This same tenant also didn't didn't believe or didn't want to pay for city garbage. So what he did is he would just fill up his trash bags, tie them up, and throw them in the backyard. And when he moved out, I had to haul about 40 to 50 full trash bags out of that backyard, and it smelled awful. And the neighbors were grateful when I cleaned up that backyard. The key point is you're living right next to someone's life. You're not dealing with a sterile unit. You're not dealing with sterile numbers. So set your expectations. Go in expecting a little bit of humanity and a little bit of messiness. And that's okay. Lesson number 2. Renovations cost more and take longer than you think they will. Remember how I said a few months turned into 3 years? Especially if you're new, I like to say, as a rule of thumb, costs are going to be anywhere from 15 to 25% more than you initially anticipate, and you can double the time that you think it's going to take. That's pretty safe. Why does this happen? Well, because you're human and you have a life. You know, life gets busy sometimes. You have birthdays you got to get to, visiting with relatives. You're tired and exhausted after coming home from work. And sometimes, honestly, motivation just fades for a few days. And remember, this whole time you have a renter who's probably living next to a mess. And if you're house hacking, you're living in and amongst the mess yourself. So the point is, if you're new, especially, think cost is going to be 15 to 25% more, and it's going to take probably double the time. And that's okay. You're learning. So it's completely fine. Just don't go in with the expectations that everything is going to work out perfectly according to plan, because that's just not realistic. That brings me to my next point. If you're doing the work yourself and living there, for the love of God, finish it as quickly as possible. Don't linger on those projects. There's a specific type of demoralization that you get hit with when you come home from a long day's work and you come home to a messy house with tools and construction dust everywhere. It's disheartening. And the more you see that you have to get done, the more demoralized you can get. So try to get those projects knocked out quickly. Or at least if you start one, try to get the current project you're on knocked out quickly. And then maybe you can pause for like a break for a few days in between that one and you starting your next one. Because trust me, if you get 3 or 4 half finished projects and you're living in and amongst that mess, you're going to be very demoralized. It's very upsetting. On a personal note, start with the projects that are going to give you your biggest bang for your buck. The projects that will make you the happiest when they're complete. Um, I I made the mistake of renovating the inside of my unit before the outside, and the outside was a complete disaster. And my thinking was I have to live in the inside. So why don't I just get this knocked out? The problem is every time I came home from my day job and I walked up to that disaster that the place was on the outside with the siding falling down and so on, it was super demoralizing. I would not do that again. I would start with the outside if I had to do it over again. And as far as getting projects knocked out fast, the interior doors and trim, ripping those all out and replacing those seemed to take forever because I dragged my feet on that project. However, when it came to tearing off old siding and hanging the new siding, I was able to get that knocked out probably like a month and a half, 2 months, because I just put my head down and just went for it. And if I was awake and not at work, I was outside working on that siding, tearing it off, rehanging it, repainting, and so on. And so that seemed to not be so bad and take so long, even though it was a ton of work. Trust me, the short term pain of a few hard weekends is definitely better than long term suffering of just sitting around in a pigsty with construction tools everywhere. Okay, lesson number 4 that I learned. A great property manager can be your most profitable relationship. Now, I was pretty surprised at this one because I figured property managers would just be all expense and not really much upside. So, what I did is my wife and I went to pick a property manager. We called up 3 of them and then we picked one, the one that had the most experience and overall just really passed the gut check. We got a sense that this person really, she knew what she was doing. She had lots of experience. She spoke with confidence. Really got the warm fuzzy from her. So we went with her. And I'm glad we did because she immediately pointed out, hey, your units are under market by a few $100s. Like, you're leaving money on the table. I didn't know that. I wasn't a property manager, and this was my first rental. I didn't really know how to check that stuff. I knew how to run the numbers for I knew how to run the numbers for the price of the house versus the rents, but I didn't really know how to do a lot of market research at this point in my career. So, what was some of the advice she gave that I wasn't aware of? Well, the one unit had a detached garage that came with it, and she said, why are you not charging more for this? They get a detached garage as a big giant 20 by 20 storage unit, and you're charging the same as the unit that doesn't have this? And I went, oh crap, that makes a lot of sense. And then also, the unit with the detached garage had its own attached garage had been converted to a family room, and I was going to convert that back to the garage. And I told the property manager that, and she said, no, what are you doing? No, that's another bedroom for them, or they can use it as a family room. Like, leave that because renters are going to love that, and you can charge more for it. I wasn't aware of that. I was just going to convert it to a garage. So those insights alone made up for her 10% fee every month, easily. Plus, the bigger win is that the property manager, especially a good one, they deal with finding tenants, screening, dealing with tenant phone calls, and negotiating basic repairs, like not negotiating, but coordinating basic repairs, to get basic repairmen in and out of there. So it removes you from a lot of the process and saves you a ton of time. My wife and I self managed for about 2 years, but then we got a property manager and we were very happy that we did. And we would never go back, honestly. Is it an expense? Yes, of course it is. They expect to be paid, especially if they're good, they expect to be well paid. But I think it's completely worth it for my style of investing, at least, because it frees me up to work on other projects and to go look for more properties. I know Warren Buffett's partner, Charlie Munger, would often say, something is not a competency unless you know the edge of it. You need to know this is my circle of expertise, and the property manager or the accountant or whoever else, your realtor or whoever, this is their circle of expertise. There may be a little bit of overlap, But overall, let them do their thing, leverage their strengths for your investing career, and then stay within your circle of competence, know what you're good at, and that way you get to leverage everybody's strengths for your investment career. So, bottom line is interview at least 3 property managers, look for one that has, years of experience. I prefer 10 plus years, and definitely go with your gut. If you get a weird vibe off of a property manager, I would avoid that. That's not a good sign. The great performers in this industry expect to be well paid and well taken care of, but they will perform for you and make your life a ton easier. Okay, the next one is a big one. Turnover costs can destroy a profitable year. What do I mean when I say turnover costs? I mean when one renter moves out and you have to get the unit rent ready for another renter. So you have to clean it, repair it, possibly replace carpets and so on. That can destroy a profitable year. I anticipate about 1,000 to 1,500, maybe more in turnover costs, depending on where the unit is at in the maintenance schedule and so on. Because remember, you have cleaning, repairs, upgrades, advertising. You'll have a vacancy period in there while you're doing these upgrades and repairs. So just be prepared for that. Also, here's a big lesson I learned as well. If you raise the rent in the middle of a good renter being there, like in the middle of their contract, if you raise it by like $100 or $200, they're going to move out and you just lost a good renter. And now you have turnover costs. So if you have a good renter in there, you really better think long and hard before you raise the rent on them. Do it if you have to, of course, but only do it by, like I do when the property manager pressures me enough. I will raise their rent like on the next year's contract by, say, $25 or $50 probably at the most. Because if they're a good renter, I want to keep them happy. I want them to stay in there long term so I don't have those turnover costs. The time to raise rent up to market by, say, $200 or something, that's in between tenants. If you got a good renter in there at the moment, take care of them and they'll make your life a lot easier. And what do I mean by a good renter? They pay on time. They don't call you all the time for little nitty gritty things like, oh, the light bulb went out in the bathroom. It's like, okay, man, that's like $2. Go get another light bulb and screw it in. Unless you don't feel competent to do so, then for the love of God, let us do it. That's what a good renter is. Even Michael Zuber, the one rental at a time guy, he talks about this a lot. He says your long term wealth is created by obtaining and holding on to good renters, not by trying to squeeze every single dollar and every single penny out of your rentals. You're going to cause yourself a lot of heartache by doing that, and you're just not going to be as profitable, as backwards as that sounds. So protect your good tenants like an asset because they are. Make sure to keep them happy. So house hacking it's not glamorous, it's not passive income, but it is simple and you can do it with very little money down. And it gets you into being a landlord and building up that equity, building up the appreciation and getting some cash flow. You're not going to be a millionaire off of it, but it's steady income. Now, if you want to hear more about the story of how I bought my first duplex, go ahead and click this video here. And thanks for hanging out. I'll see you in the next one.